Part 2, Simon Shadows on the Travis DuFour podcast. And if I've learned anything from professional wrestling and the podcasting industry, if you make it to part 2 on any episode, you've really made it. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, most definitely.
Yes, we have made it. God, it feels good being at the top. Now, I want to start off part 2 with, we're not going to continue the conversation of whatever the hell we were talking about. We're going to do a little bit of a thing that I call word association. You ever heard of it?
I have.
Oh my God. So you know how to play?
So you say a word.
No, you say a word.
I say a word.
No, I'm just kidding. I say a word. Mm-hmm. Or it could be an entire sentence. It'll be a different kind of word association. And then you tell me the first thing that pops into your brain.
All right.
This is a very creative guy I got sitting in front of me. So this has the potential to be very entertaining. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Brooklyn Brawler.
I love him.
Bastion Booger.
Oh, jeez. I don't even know what this. Friar Tuck.
Friar Tuck?
Yeah, Trucker Norm.
Trucker Norm?
Norman the Lunatic.
Oh, okay. All right. Is this different aliases of this guy? Okay. We don't want to have a whole segment on Bastion Booger. But, okay. How about this? Goldberg.
Who's next?
Okay. Very similar name to this guy. James Ellsworth.
Jesus.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Just Jesus. Yes. Okay. So, okay. Jimmy Dream.
Fuck.
Okay. Okay. All right. Next word. We want to steer clear from all that stuff. Next word. How about the National Wrestling League House of Pain Wrestling Federation?
John Rambo.
Okay. John Rambo.
These fucking guys.
Okay. Guess that's a quote from him.
I don't know. You say Rambo, and the first thing I think of is wrestling, really.
Sure.
You know. Stallone.
Like what CPW was to you, the House of Pain was for me.
Really?
Not the exact same, because that was the shows I went to. Mm-hmm. Tons of House of Pain events when I was growing up, where I saw Jake Davis and Leslie Lemon. Mm-hmm. But how about Bret the Hitman Hart?
Slightly overrated.
Okay, why?
Why? I don't know.
He's not a promo guy.
It's not.
He was okay. Early '90s, late '80s. He was not that bad whenever he was with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Tell him, Anvil.
Don't get me wrong. Like, I think Bret's a legend and a great.
Sure.
But if you've ever heard him talk about himself, you'll understand why. You realize maybe he's just a little slightly overrated.
Okay. And as far as anybody wanting to put Bret Hart as like one of the best of all time, you need to remember that being a great technician in the ring, being a great storyteller, those are great. But did you generate money with the stories that you did tell?
Well, okay, but in Bret's slight defense, Bret's first couple world title runs were during a real downtime in wrestling.
Right.
First couple years after the steroid trial and such. So, I mean, he did have some things working against him. If you were going to put, the all-time great list together, Bret is probably somewhere between 15 and 20.
Okay. You know what? And any Bret Hart fans out there, that's the truth, all right? Don't you hassle us about it. He's number 15 or 20. All right. So, okay. Very similar guy. Shawn Michaels. Word association. Prick?
Yeah, well, okay, because see, the thing is that, like,
TJ Sykes, don't listen to this part.
No, Michaels in the 90s is a giant prick. And
yeah.
His second,
good worker, though.
Yeah.
His matches with Razor Ramon and all these, Bret.
Yeah, and remember the
great
time
matches.
Remember the time he pulled up on the elbow and stomped on Vader's head because Vader had slightly moved?
Sure. There is that as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
And he buried, Shane Douglas, and he
righted... I mean, he righted a lot of wrongs on his second run, which you could argue might even be better because, he was kind of in and out and really only worked on top. But, I mean, you just hear about what an asshole he was for years, once he became the guy,
Yeah.
know.
One of my favorite YouTube channels is What Culture Wrestling, and they did a top 10 reasons why Shawn Michaels was an asshole. And they just brought up all the, about Vader and about, he didn't want to lose the belt whenever he lost his smile. So Shane Douglas ended up winning it.
No,
because he didn't want to drop it.
That's a different thing. I think the lost his smile, like that's what.
Well, that was losing it to Bret. That was the Bret story right there.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, because that set up the whole WrestleMania thing where they did the Fatal 4-Way, where I think it was Vader, Taker, Austin, and Bret.
Oh, okay.
In like the elimination thing for the title, because it set up because Bret won it and then lost it the next night to Sid, and then it's like leading to the most forgotten WrestleMania main event in history, The Undertaker versus Sid.
Yeah.
Like I do. Okay, here's a question for you.
Okay.
Undertaker and Sid, worst WrestleMania main event?
Worst WrestleMania main event?
Is it worse than the Bret Yoko Hogan thing in '93?
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, that was bad too. I was a Hogan mark. So Hogan coming in and cleaning house and taking the belt and riding off in the sunset. As a kid, I was like, hell yeah, Hogan, you deserve it. But looking at it now, I'm like, okay, that's kind of bullshit. But I don't know, man. Bam Bam Bigelow versus Lawrence Taylor.
No, because you have to grade things on a curve, and you have to recognize what a great job Bam Bam did in making that an average match.
But from a fan standpoint, I would mark that lower than Taker Sid.
Maybe, but I mean that generated a lot of mainstream interest.
It did.
I can't imagine that too many.
Vince Russo would have agreed with you. Put the belt on David Arquette. Bring in Lawrence Taylor. Let's have that happen.
Yeah, but
Jay Leno, let's put him in a match.
There's a difference between a 150-pound actor and 280-pound killer middle linebacker Lawrence Taylor.
That's a very solid point.
I feel like Lawrence Taylor is I buy Lawrence Taylor as a bad man right there. David Arquette is really just a bad actor.
Yeah, a bad actor. Okay, so now Jeff Jarrett. Now you watch it there. That's my favorite wrestler of all time.
I don't know. See, you keep saying word association, and I can only think of phrases. You say Jeff Jarrett, and I just think of "It's My World."
My world. Best theme song of all time.
Yeah, if you're gonna understand what the hell the dude was saying.
Ranked number 1 on multiple lists.
Yeah, well, I mean, TNA also has
Just give it one word. You got it.
What, his song?
No, just word association, Jeff Jarrett. What do you think of? Guitar.
Probably.
Yeah.
China.
Yeah,
the Good Housekeeping match.
You want to bring up that angle?
Yeah.
Man. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, China was almost the first and only lady to ever hold the WWE title.
True, and she's also the only woman to ever be Intercontinental Champion.
Yeah. Yeah, actually.
That's something. I mean, you can't erase
God, why did she have to go down the path that she did? She ruined everything. Not going to get credit for anything now.
Yeah, I mean, that's an unfortunate thing, because you try and whitewash history. The WWE at this point, they don't like to acknowledge a lot of the things they did. They like to use the Attitude Era to sell DVDs and to sell, other nostalgia-based things, but they really don't like to. I mean, because you go back and you watch it now, and you're like, oh, this is awful. You wonder, how'd this company win the Monday Night War? But it also shows that great wrestling talent will overcome nonsensical booking, I mean, because anybody who wants to know how the Monday Night War was won, despite what anyone wants to tell you, is that when you take, just think of the 5 main guys that they had there. Okay, you've got Austin and Foley, who are 2 of the last guys to come out of the territories, out of Tennessee, and Cactus Jack worked around Texas, and Austin obviously worked around Texas, and they had been well-traveled.
And Cactus Jack had been working with John Rambo there for the longest time, yeah.
You had you had the Undertaker, who by that point had been so well established, and had I could go on for hours about what a great talent I think the Undertaker is.
Sure.
Because of his ability to reinvent himself and always keep himself fresh, and also to overcome, like, it's weird because even people who don't like cartoon wrestling will admit that the Undertaker is great.
Yeah.
Because it's always a funny thing in wrestling anytime you start delving into, and then the lightning strikes, and then we're gonna light him on fire. There's only so much you can push it. Or you remember, I think it was Great American Bash '04 maybe, where it's the Undertaker versus the Dudleys, and they've got Paul Bearer sitting in that like the cement cage.
Yeah, right.
And
where they killed off the character.
Yeah, if the Undertaker loses, the Dudleys are gonna pull the thing. So the Undertaker wins, and then he pulls the thing. Why? Because he's the Undertaker, and then it's like, oh well, he's dead.
The Undertaker ended up pulling it.
Yeah.
What a twist!
Right. Because it's also funny because on the live pay-per-view feed, like, they hit the wrong thing and ended up, like, airing this test reel where, like, he's wiggling around. It was just bad, but, so Foley, Austin, Taker, and then you have The Rock, who is the most naturally charismatic man to ever be in wrestling, and anybody who disagrees with that statement is just wrong.
You're wrong!
And on top of that, you have Vince himself before, like, because that was when...
The greatest heel of all time.
No.
Would you say?
No.
As far as money. As far as the story. Overall.
No.
Who beats Vince?
Ric Flair. There are tons of world champions.
You're talking...
Okay, here's the thing, though. So you're trying to say, you can't use Vince as a drawing card. Because, okay, how many pay-per-views was he on where he worked? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
SummerSlam around the middle of the card. Like, I mean, it was a hot thing, but I think, Austin and The Rock made more money than Austin and Vince. Austin and Vince made for really great TV.
Yeah.
But Vince was only going to work so many of those things, and the problem is that because of the success they had early on, is that morphed everything, and then one day Vince decided he wasn't going to put anyone over anymore, and he wasn't going to sell for anybody anymore, and that's when you started seeing Vince. He wouldn't be on TV as often, but when he was always asserting himself, and he wasn't backing down from anyone, and after, and that's kind of where you still are now, I think, what was it, 4 years ago, they did that thing on TV where Vince worked CM Punk, and the match was 15 minutes of Vince beating CM Punk all around the arena. And it's like...
For some reason, I don't remember that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's another thing that we could get into, the fact that everything is over the last, everything over the last 6-7 years is so instantly forgettable, And I think that's...
I wonder why.
Because it's... They don't book things in a way for people to get super excited about matchups.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the Lesnar-Goldberg thing. It's an attraction, and wrestling has always been based around attractions, and it works. But every time they do that, they show that the guys that they have on top now can't generate the same level of interest as these guys. Because, I mean, Goldberg shouldn't be able to come back at 50 couple and be the hottest guy on TV.
Right.
Because, but they have nobody, because, and see, here's the other thing too, is that, and it's kind of a booking thing, and if you look at how they book, they have no hot baby faces. None. It's all built around, because it's all built around heels, but even the baby faces in the chase, they're not exceptionally hot. Like, when I watch things on TV, or when I watch a pay-per-view, if you really want to try and get a measure of how over things are, you watch the match, but just try and listen past the announcers. Try and listen to the live crowd, and watch the people. Because if people are sitting still, and it's very like or when the big or when like somebody like, just for example, Dean Ambrose. When Dean Ambrose comes out, if everyone goes yeah, but nobody gets up, it's like, okay, well, the guy is always going to be over at a certain level, but he's not hot. You know what I mean? And that's because I don't watch a whole lot of what's on TV anymore. I do every so often because you get so tired of like, oh man, this guy's getting hot. I can't wait to see them chop the legs off of this guy.
Right.
You see a guy like, Cesaro.
You think they're pulling the trigger too late on a lot of these guys? Because whenever Batista ended up winning the Rumble a couple years ago, they were actually very behind Roman Reigns. Yeah. And then they waited a year. Well, and then they pulled the trigger on him. Because they were tired of Roman by then.
I think they lack a certain amount of confidence in pulling the trigger. And you also have to remember that the way that they book is they don't want to be beholden to any one particular star.
Right.
They want it to be about the WWE.
Yeah.
But there are pros and cons to that. The pro is that you don't get it. Nobody's walking out saying they ain't going to do a job, or no one's refusing to do business. But the con is that nobody's getting super hot. The new guys, aren't getting over at the same level. But what they do now is they get a smaller audience to pay more money. They're still going to make a profit, but see, that's the other thing too about the WWE. Does anybody think at this point they really care about wrestling? This is a company that they hate that word.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of the WWE corporate people will say things like, "We don't sell wrestling. We sell entertainment." Really? I dare you to do WrestleMania without a ring. Do it. If you ain't selling wrestling to anybody, one, why is it called WrestleMania? Unless it's just kind of an archaic name. And two, it's like, go ahead. Let's listen to Jericho do knock-knock jokes for an hour and a half. Let's, we'll run Kevin Owens out here. He'll do the juggling bear act. They'll drive an ATV. Go ahead. I dare you, but they won't. Because if you didn't have a ring, nobody would come.
Yeah.
Because, think about it. You watch TV, they don't ever talk about pro wrestling. And they don't ever, nothing's ever taken seriously.
And whenever you do hear somebody say, I'm a professional wrestler, like you hear some guys like bring up that word like some more. Because they're trying to like make our eyes like, oh God, he's going against the establishment.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They've spent, the WWE has spent years, like, just beating wrestling fans over the head with it's not a sport. No, it's not. Don't you try and call it a sport, or we're going to tell you how you're stupid, and we're not wrestling, we're entertainment. Right. We make movies that no one goes to see.
Now, have you been keeping up with, there's a very similar thing that's going on with TNA and Lucha Underground. Now, have you watched any TNA or Lucha Underground lately? In the last 6 months?
Are you talking about just like the different ways of shooting it?
The cinematic, yes. It's cinematic. For example, the guy that TNA pushed like really hard, and he went over on Angle, he went over on all these guys, but he came from NXT. What the hell is his name?
Ethan Carter?
Ethan Carter. Okay, him and this other dude was having an angle, Drew Galloway or whatever the hell. Mm-hmm. And they had like this segment that went throughout the entire event. They showed this different thing of them sitting down next to a pool at a hotel, drinking drinks, talking about the match they were having that Sunday. And then at the very end of the segment, like, he pushed Ethan Carter into the pool and was like, "See you Sunday, bud." And then, like, I was like, that just, I don't know, man. I think it's crap. I don't like it.
It depends.
I don't like this new direction they're going in.
It depends on how you want to look at it. Because TNA doing this deletion stuff has generated more interest than anything they've done in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Since everyone started leaving. There is, it is entertaining. You want to sit down and watch it as a movie, It's interesting. I enjoyed seeing the Rock and Roll Express,
Yeah.
And anytime you can get Punky Morton out there, I'll pay attention. But I mean, it was just, John Schuyler was on that too.
On the deletion?
He was on the deletion.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Was he deleted?
I don't know. I didn't watch the whole thing. I really just watched. I watched the Rock and Roll Express versus the Hardys.
So is angles like the deletion angle? Is that drawing you in?
I mean,
You?
slightly. I mean, it's not. It's not going to get me to the point to where I'm going to tune into it every week.
Right.
And after a while,
We've heard about the buzz, but we don't want to watch it.
Well, it's one of those things. I think it's very akin to the way the shoot angles work in wrestling. Mm-hmm. They're very good in the short term, but over the long term, you can't sustain it.
Right.
Because after a while, in these deletion matches, in these deletion episodes, what are we going to do? Okay, well, now I've got a gun. Everybody run. And now all of a sudden it's just, you turn TNA into a shitty episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. But I'm serious because, it's funny, but what do you do after it? And more importantly, how do you monetize it? Lucha Underground, they've done some very innovative stuff, but they hemorrhage money.
Yeah.
Because
you always see the reports on that.
You can't, because how do you sell it? You can't, unless you're going to make, you want to make mini movies, maybe, and try and sell those as a pay-per-view package, because you can't sell it as a house show, you can't sell it as a live event. Right. Unless you're going to put this Broadway-esque, theatrical.
Do you think they could do a live deal with what they're trying to go for?
I don't know.
Pre-tape all your segments and then air the matches live, but do the segment. I don't know.
Maybe. But that's the thing is I'm not I'd rather, if you're going to do something like that, I'd rather you do the whole thing like that. And the whole thing is this card from this compound. Because once you try and intermix live entertainment and pre-taped things, it's a lot harder because there's a little bit of a disconnect. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't feel authentic.
Right.
So
you were a big fan of TNA whenever they first started, right?
On Spike TV.
I'm talking about NWA TNA.
Of the pay-per-views,
yes,
there are
2002.
It is broken up into, I remember, two distinct things. So I remember Ron Killens being the world's champion. And then I remember the run with Dusty, where Dusty worked with Styles, and then he worked with Jarrett, and the stuff like that. And then when they got on Comcast, or the Fox Sports deal.
Yep.
I watched some of those.
And that was on at 4 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah, sometimes it'd be on at 2 a.m.
I had to run home to catch it. And I remember specifically, I kept the TV on and everything, and I got home, and I lost my keys. I couldn't get inside the house, but my window was open. Oh, well, it wasn't open, but the curtains were pulled, and I watched TNA the entire hour, standing on my porch. Couldn't hear nothing. I just stood there. Because, if you watch something from the very beginning, you want to watch it grow and everything, but, it's not even the same.
No, because, but, it hasn't been the same for 10 years. Because when they, that summer before they started on Spike TV, through the beginning of the Spike TV, is I thought they were on they were on the right path for a while. Because the thing that made TNA a step above Ring of Honor was the production value and the star power. Because one of the big hindrances I feel to Ring of Honor has always been a lack of legitimate star power.
Yeah.
They, because you can only, with the way the public perceives wrestling these days, you're only going to go so far with homegrown star power. You're only, you're going to maintain there because, TNA could bring a lot of those people in, oh, hey, Scott Steiner's here, but he's one guy. Once they started signing everybody, and it really became, it became a Velocity or a Heat type of show. Yeah. Guys are running around because they started trying to copy, the WWE after, if they were trying to be an alternative. The X Division was a good mix. I didn't think Jeff Jarrett shouldn't have been champion for years like he was. I think that there were a couple times that I think TNA was hurt by their own thinking that nobody could do it better than Jarrett. I really liked when they gave it to Raven. But, of course, the first episode that airs on Spike has those clips from that Border City Wrestling show, They did it on a Scott D'Amore show, and I've always been puzzled by why they did that. Like a week or two before they got on Spike TV. Not, if you were going to do something like that, why didn't you do it on TV?
He ended up losing it to Jarrett, right?
Yeah, he lost.
Because they wanted somebody with a
And-
bigger name value than Raven.
Yeah, and see, what the funny thing was is that they did the thing where America's Most Wanted hit the ring on him, but then they never followed up on it. Because Raven had a program with Larry Zbyszko after that. When they started that thing because, like, every pay-per-view it was Raven versus the mystery opponent. Because one time it was Canyon, and then it was just Incredible, then it was Sean Waltman, and then a couple months later, Raven and Larry Zbyszko had a hair match. And Zbyszko got shaved. So.
Raven got shaved.
Oh, did
right?
he?
Yeah.
No.
Because that was whenever they shaved his head.
No. The scalping?
Yeah.
No.
Is that a different angle?
Yeah, that was before. The scalping was when they were still in Nashville, was when that happened.
And they screwed it up and they were cutting his head open.
Oh,
because
the clippers were dull.
Yeah.
So, like, James Mitchell's just, like, dragging it across his head. Like, anybody who hasn't seen it should get on YouTube and look up that clip, because I wouldn't have your children around, mind you. But it is entertaining.
Well, I think that the best thing that TNA has ever given us is Victory Road of Sting versus Jeff Hardy. That's the best thing that they've ever given us.
Oh, are you talking about the one where he was like...
It was the breakdown, man. You get to watch somebody literally break down in front of you. And who doesn't love that? You watch Dr. Phil, you like it too.
That's awful, It's going to be a weird trivia note that, in 10 years, it's that Jeff Hardy spent a year being the world's hottest babyface. It's going to be a weird footnote. Because there was a time, when, like, I think it was like 2009, when he was as hot as anybody.
He was killing it.
They had, and they waited to pull the trigger on him. And rightly so, because obviously he had his own issues, but... See, the thing about the Hardy Boys is that Matt has always been the worker.
Yeah.
And you look at the deletion stuff, and you can kind of see it, that he's, he's more the mind. And when Jeff Hardy thinks, you get things like, Will-O-the-Wisp, like...
Garbage. Just weird stuff. We can't comprehend it.
Right. Anytime you're doing a gimmick that seems like it belongs in Juggalo Championship Wrestling.
Right. Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. Since as a younger Simon Shadows, you had a particular interest in ICP and not just ICP, but a lot of the other artists from that label. Did you follow Juggalo Championship Wrestling?
Yeah, actually, I watched.
You did follow it.
They had they did like on YouTube. They had like a season's worth of like wrestling. Where they did like these
Corporal Robinson.
Yeah, I mean,
Too Tough Tony.
Don't get me wrong. Like, a lot of times I watched it and I didn't like buy it as good wrestling, but it also
It was the gimmick for you,
yeah.
Right?
Well, no, not even that. But it's like I love wrestling. And I've watched a lot of bad wrestling in my life too. And bad wrestling can be, you can look at bad wrestling one of two ways. You can either be one of those guys who swears to the sky to get rid of all bad wrestling in wrestling and all bad wrestlers in wrestling, or you can be that guy who just takes a step back and goes, okay, let's watch this train wreck.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's how it is, because, and see, the thing is some of those guys like Necro Butcher could actually work, and some of the spots he did was unique. It wasn't just, I've never been a big fan of guys just like, hitting each other with light tubes and
just for the
like
sake
that.
of doing it, right?
It's
there's no build up to it. There's whole tournaments of this shit.
Yeah, not only that, but it's like, okay, so after you hit this guy with an axe in his ankle and he's already back up and he ain't selling it, well, now when I try and do the figure four and I'm gonna break somebody's ankle, even though you could, in theory legitimately do it, people are like, oh, well, that's not as bad because that guy got hit with an axe in the ankle. It's the same thing every time somebody goes through a table. Like, if you get up from that, how is anybody supposed to buy a bump is hurting again?
Right. What do you think is the most dangerous move ever? I already got one in mind.
The most dangerous move?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
The cop killer, man. The Gringo
the
Killer.
homicide, yeah.
Yep. I would never take that move.
I don't think that one's as bad as the border toss, because Hernandez would just throw people up there.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's...
Yeah, you got the Canadian Destroyer, which the pile driver's already dangerous to begin with.
Yeah, and it's, you know... But see, you know, that's a good example of, you know, people buying into the spot, not the guy. Because Petey Williams was a decent little worker, you know, but... You know, he wasn't an exceptionally good promo, but at the same time, we don't know, because they were probably writing for him.
Right.
But he wasn't exceptionally charismatic, he wasn't exceptionally big, but he did the Canadian Destroyer. So every time he came on TV, people would be like, oh, hey, it's that guy who does that cool move. I hope he does that cool move, and they wouldn't care until he did the cool move.
Right.
You know, because...
Now, is there a move that no matter who it is, you won't take? Is there a certain move? Other than the ones that we've already said?
Not really. I mean, if you can
Steiner screwdriver, man. I won't take it. Not doing it.
Yeah, but, I mean, you know, I don't think anyone has that idea.
And stuff like the Frankensteiner. You know, I don't know, man. I'm not taking that.
The Hurricane Rana?
Off the top rope?
Do a front flip. You gotta.
Well, I'm just afraid for them. You know, like, I don't know. That's the whole thing.
I mean, you could get Mark Jindrak. You remember, like, the time? Do you don't remember that? Like, I mean, thank God he wasn't seriously hurt.
See, you can think of stories where people getting hurt with this move.
Yeah, well, because somebody, it was on SmackDown, and somebody was sitting on the top rope, and Jindrak ran, and he did, like, a straight vertical to the top, and then he went to do the Hurricane Rana, but the guy didn't move or anything, and Jindrak just kind of slides off and down onto his head. Yeah, it was ugly. You know, I mean, you want to talk about dangerous moves. I mean, you know, you could do some serious damage with the cross-face chicken wing. You know,
yeah.
I don't think the ankle lock's anything to be messed with. You know, your ankle's a very tender area. I don't know, that top rope brainbuster that El Generico used to do looks pretty scary.
Yeah. Yeah, with the years that go by and the, you know, like people want to get more innovative and stuff, there was that little era of, like, you know, whenever Ring of Honor first started coming around, where you just saw all these young guys doing, like, the craziest moves. Mm-hmm. And TNA had, like the Jarrell Clarks of the world doing the 630 splash. And,
oh, man, you remember Jack Evans?
Yes.
Mr. 630.
My favorite of all those guys, Elix Skipper.
Prime time, baby.
You're going down, Christopher Daniels. You're going down. And, like, I just was like, please give him more mic time.
Every time, I always wonder why. Like, I wonder if the kick pads and the wrestling shoes fucked with him. Because 9 out of 10 times when he would try and do that damn top rope Hurricane Rana, he would fall at least once. There's one pay-per-view I remember seeing where they did, like, one of those X-Gauntlet Battle Royals. And he went to do that, and somebody goes to knock him outside the ring. But they hit him, and he falls to the wrong side and lands, like, right on his head. They just pick him up and dump him over the top. Like, all right, I'm going to change this up. What are the hardest chops you've ever taken? Who threw them?
I feel like Jake Davis has, whenever he lit me up, I think he's only chopped me once, but since I remember it that well, I feel like Jake Davis probably. You?
Latin Tornado.
Yeah, I've never had the pleasure.
It isn't about a roll, because he's got, like, he does, like, this really short, compact overhand.
Overhand?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the overhand chop?
It's fine. I mean, it's...
You don't frown upon that, you know?
No, the overhand, it's more awkward, and, like, I throw the overhand as a receipt. Like...
Sure.
If people, you know, because...
Yeah, see, you're throwing it as a receipt, though.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think a lot of times because it's not, you know, I mean, it's fine, don't get me wrong, but I like the visual of the backhand, of being able to rear back and to get that big whip motion with your arm and just bam, and you can go straight through, you know, because that's the thing, like, think about it. Like, if I give you a knife edge chop, I can hit you square in the chest and just kind of keep on going and bring my hand back. You know what I mean? If I give you an overhand, I am like throwing everything I have right into your chest, and then I am pushing off your chest to get my hand back.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's a motion thing.
Now, don't you get the, I always get this, like, horrible feeling whenever I'm in a match with somebody and they back me up into the corner, the first chop they throw was garbage. And I'm thinking, God, he's going to have to wing this next one. I always get that, like, bad feeling. I'm like, damn it, this next one's going to be crazy.
It's, you know, it is a relatively helpless feeling because...
Got to take it.
That's part of the thing with wrestling is you have to be willing to get hit.
You got to be a man, Hogan.
Yeah, and if you flinch, it looks even worse.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, and not only that, like something.
The crowd's gonna shit all over you too.
Yeah, and something like I mean, it's weird to say, but I mean something as simple as flinching can throw everything off, because that guy's going to stop, and he's gonna be his brain's gonna be scrambled for a second as he's like, oh, damn, now I really have to hit him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Who are some of your favorite guys to work with?
Well, favorite guys to work with on a. I don't really, I have like the guys that I've trained with so much. Like anytime I get to work with like a Robbie Page or a you or a Jake Young, like that's easy peasy. I don't really tend to think about that too much. In my mind, at this stage of the game that I'm at right now, anytime I get to work with somebody that I've never have, like in 2 weeks, I'm going to get to wrestle Sherrod Hall up at Phoenix Pro Wrestling. Now, this guy, he took a number of years off from wrestling, but he got trained with those same group of guys, like the Shane Mallises and the Zach Rains. And in my opinion, I've had good matches with those guys. So this guy being out of the game for so long, it's going to be a chance for me to, for one, work somebody I never had before. And for two, I want to have a good match with the guy. I've seen him have a couple, good matches so far. But he's worked a guy who he used to back in the day. Mm-hmm. And from my understanding, a lot, and with a lot of these guys, and this goes as far as around here, too, there's some guys who work for one company, one town, they never go out. Mm-hmm. So, dude, whenever I get to step into the ring with the guy, I've wrestled in all these different states. I've been wrestling 10 years. I've wrestled so many different people. It's going to be a chance for him to actually, it's more of a chance for him to, hang with somebody who has gone to seminars and trains, Mm-hmm. And that just really excites me. I hope it didn't sound like I was putting myself over there. Kind of was. Kind of not. Kind of was.
It's wrestling. If you're not going to put yourself over, nobody else is going to.
You got to be confident in what you do.
You do.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the 37-minute mark. And I guess we're going to start closing it out. I want to wish you the very best of luck going out to Cincinnati, because like I told you via text message, and I'll tell everybody out there because I'm not afraid to tell everybody. I don't mind telling you. If anybody can do this, it's Simon Shadows. And he has grown up around the business. He's been a booker. He's been a worker. He's been a ref. He's done all this stuff. And you know what? You've hit the ceiling around here. And I'm glad that you realize that. You need to go out there and test yourself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not quite at the ceiling yet. There are still some things around here that can be accomplished. But at the same time, you can go back and you can come back somebody else,
Yeah.
You can work a lot of different people. And I've spent the better part of the last 5 years telling the entire world that there is nothing that Jake Young can do that I can't do better than he can. So...
And so Jake left off for Tennessee, and now you're going to go to a different stomping grounds, a different territory, if you will. And guaranteed, you're going to be in a big city. Plenty of people probably run stuff out there. I think you'll be fine.
There will be plenty of roaring elbows for everyone.
And I don't know, man. Are you going to change your name going out there? Because he's not even Jacob Young anymore. He's Jacob Edwin. Are you going to change your name out there?
Fuck no. I don't know.
You'll be Simon Shadows out there.
It doesn't matter, dude.
It seems like you didn't even give that in consideration. Have you ever thought about changing your name, ever?
No, because like if I could have no name, I would. Because every time I am me. Every time I work, I am myself, and I'm, you know, Jeffrey Heimberger admittedly does not look terribly terrific on a poster. Simon Shadows is very simple. It's relatively mysterious. You know, you never know. I mean, yeah. Like if I ever become a radio DJ, I intend to use that name too.
Really?
Yeah, because it's really just who I am.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
You know, I mean, admittedly, I always wanted to be like the Masked Marauder, or I could always like
Big Mickey Claus.
Big Mickey Claus. You know, I want to become like Dr. X the Third. Like, I don't know. I think I might become the Baron Simon von Shadows while I'm out there.
That really doesn't sound bad, too.
It really doesn't. I always wanted to be a Baron.
Not the Corbins of the world. But thank you very much for joining me today. And yeah, I guess that's it. It's the safest of travels to you. And thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of the Travis DuFour podcast. Tune in here in 2-3 weeks as we have, I guess I can announce it, The Solution, Zach Rain is our next guest. So please tune in to that one. Favorite it, subscribe, and do all that other stuff. And like it too, you know, whatever you want to do. And share it. Do all the above. Share it on Twitter. Share it on MySpace. Thank you. Good night.